To begin with, I want to assert, we can debate it through the day, that tax avoidance is now the corporate responsibility issue of our day, of this generation going through. How a business responds to this issue now determines the public's view on that business more than any other issue. Even if you're a retailer and you sell fair trade, they care more about tax avoidance. If you're a big tech company and you say, I'm going to put all my money into renewables, they still care more about tax avoidance. Poll after poll after poll shows this, as I'll elucidate in a second. Tax avoidance is the issue of our day. And today we're going to explore what it means for a business to stand up for fair tax, not just for fair tax mark, but to stand up for the issue of fair tax. We will not be spending an inordinate amount of time arguing about definitions of where tax evasion starts and avoidance stops, about what a tax haven is and isn't. That's a debate for another day. We will not be laying blame and castigating businesses over what's gone on before. Not much. There'll be a bit, I'm sure. And I may indulge now and then. Today is about essentially rebuilding the moral, philosophical and methodological case for businesses paying the right amount of tax in the right place at the right time. So we're not setting our sights low. I say rebuild the case because there's a fact that we have seen a steady erosion in corporate tax rates across the world in recent decades. If you go back to the 80s, the average corporation tax rate was about 50% in OECD countries. Now it's about half that and falling. Now this erosion in corporate tax has actually taken place with barely a whimper of protest, not from politicians, not from activists, not from many in society. It's happened and it's continuing. But what's also happened is there's been a parallel increase in tax avoidance against this, and that is what has caused the outcry in society that we've seen. Now, the beginnings were with investigative journalists of all colours and shapes and sizes, your Daily Telegraph, your Daily Mail, your Guardian, etc., the Sun, looking at some breathtaking examples of tax avoidance. That was only made possible through the pioneering work of the likes of Richard Murphy and John Christensen, who were there way before this was a sexy issue, drawing these issues to people's attention. That work was then taken off by pioneering politicians like Margaret Hodge, who's speaking later, and Caroline Lucas, who's backed our fair tax pledge today, and NGOs like ActionAid and UK Uncut. And then we ended up with this weird situation in about 2012, 2013, where you had people in pubs knowing what a double Irish was, talking about Starbucks. I mean, amazing change in circumstances. But the type of things that really got to people, and it's worth saying, is people just do not get the fact that Starbucks in 14 years can pay 8.5 million in tax. That just beggars belief, and people say something's wrong. Amazon can pay something like 4 million on 4 billion of turnover. Something's wrong. Now what some clever clogs will say is, yes, but that's tax paid on turnover. Tax is paid on profit, but we are forced to use turnover as a proxy for what's going on out there because we don't know what the profit is, because we don't have country by country reporting. So all you people out there who moan, not in this room obviously, out there I mean philosophically, all those people out there who moan about the fact that we talk about tax paid on turnover, the way we solve this is by having country by country reporting, and we wouldn't do it any longer. So business, back it. That's my one bit of naming and shaming out the way. Like I said, corporate responsibility has now become the #1 corporate responsibility issue in this country. The Institute for Business Ethics, who are involved in a workshop later, have tracked for a number of years what are the issues the public cares about most. For a number of years, it was executive remuneration, fat cat pay if you want to call it that. And then tax well and truly knocked it off its perch in 2013 and 2014. And KPMG have done research as well with YouGov, which shows that amongst all the factors customers have of businesses, whether it's price or quality, tax is now up there at #4. It's ahead of fair trade, it's ahead of environmental concerns, it's ahead of caring for staff, it's ahead of caring for the community. Tax avoidance has broke through in a major way. But this isn't just about a crisis in confidence, trust in business, or even trust in governance, or even trust in government. This is about a crisis in confidence, I would suggest, in the whole financial accounting and auditing sector. So YouGov and SSE released research on Tuesday, and that pointed out that the public, only 34% believe big business is paying its way on tax. Only 6% trust that business of all shapes and sizes is honest and open about tax paid. That's an amazing statistic. That is a complete lack of trust in the honesty of business. Now you might say, well, that's why we have financial audits. Financial audits are there to hold people to account. They're there to make sure the numbers add up. Yet only 17% of the public trust that financial auditors are doing their job. This is a crisis in confidence of financial audit. Now amazingly, when the same people were asked, who else do you trust holding people to account on tax? Yes, they said HMRC, number one, as you would expect, but number two, very close number two, was independent certification schemes like the Fair Tax Mark, which is amazing. We've only been going 18 months and we're already number two. We were actually number one in Scotland. But there's something a bit weird going on in Scotland right now, and whether it's Iron Brew or Tenants Extra, they have actually got us as the number one body in which to place trust. But I would actually say, and people may disagree with this, the worm has turned somewhat. So if you just look at what's been going on in the first quarter of 2015 across the world, the March budget we had in this country, where the government announced its so-called Google tax, the new penalties for those who evade tax evasion. These are positive steps. Some people may say they don't go far enough, but they are positive steps. The general election that we've just had, it was the issue of tax that brought the whole thing to light. Everyone remember the hoo-ha about nom-doms, etc. We have a Conservative manifesto that promises 5 billion in tax evasion and tax avoidance clear-up. 5 billion. It also mentions other issues to do with tax. The previous Conservative manifesto in 2010 had 0 mentions of tax avoidance in it. The Labour manifesto only had 1. This issue has risen right to the top of the agenda. And further afield, we've got President Obama in the States trying to bring in a transition tax to bring back that 2 trillion of profit that's stashed overseas. The EU's responded to the LuxLeaks scandal, and it's looking at how it can change the way these sugar-coated deals certain countries are doing with certain businesses. And the OECD is progressing, albeit not to the degree we would like, but it is progressing with a form of country-by-country reporting. And last but not least, we've seen the emergence from civil society of the Fair Tax Mark. Now, I'm someone, my career is about 20, 25 years being based around ethical certification schemes. I was there at the beginning of things like fair trade and ethical investment. And I can assure you, where the Fair Tax Mark is now, it is way ahead of where those schemes were at the same point in time, way ahead. So some statistics for you. Fair trade in this country is now worth about 1.7 billion a year. And the watered down version of fair trade, which is called the Rainforest Alliance, is worth another 1.7 billion. That's 3.5 billion in fairly traded products in the UK. Fair trade was launched in 1992. In 2000, 8 years in, the market was worth 33 million. After 8 years, 33 million. It was a slow burn fair trade, I assure you. Ethical investment. Go back to 1984. Friends Provident launched the first ethical investment fund in the UK. All the city traders scoffed. They used to call it the Brazil Fund, because you'd have to be nuts to invest in it. 1984, 10 years later, ethical investment in this country now is worth 13.5 billion per annum. 10 years later, it was only worth 700 million. It took another 10 years to get to 4.5 billion. These were slow burn, and fair tax isn't like that. We've already got 10 businesses banked, and Misha's going to talk about those later. And we've got a host of others progressing certification, which she's going to talk about. And I need to be careful because I'm stealing her thunder, and she's giving me the evils.